Greetings all, Shane Bruce, rest of my Daisy, and today we've got an unusual problem. It's not uncommon, but you don't run into it very often. The gun we're working on today is a Daisy model 111. As you can see by the engraving on the receiver there, it's manufactured in Rogers, Arkansas. This is a post 58 gun. And the 111 is another small frame Daisy. It is, if you'll note, quite similar to a Red Ryder, and it should be because they use the same receivers. The same plunger assemblies, just about all the mechanicals inside the gun will swap one to another. It is a 111 though, so it isn't a branded Red Ryder. Irregardless, mechanically it's identical interior. This little gun is seen better days. As you can tell, it's got a bit of dust here and there. Paint is sketchy. The buttstock is on the gun and intact, and unlike earlier iterations of this gun, the buttstock does not have a logo on the level, on the back. It's just looks like a regular old butt plate, but of course it's made out of plastic. The forearm's missing on the gun, but what we're going to talk about today is the fact that this is a bottle cap Daisy whose bottle cap does not want to come out. It is jammed. It is bound up real solid, and it's not coming out of the gun the way it normally would, and that's a problem. So, in order to diagnose this further, what we're going to have to do is remove the back end of the gun so we can find out what is going on. Oftentimes in bottle cap guns, the air tube, the end of the plunger assembly that actually transmits the air to the BB so the gun can shoot, sometimes they can get jammed up inside the bottle cap itself. The air tube itself might have been peened at some point in time. So the first step of the process is to remove the buttstock. Step number one is take the stock screw out of the top. Step number two, now this is not a factory standard Daisy screw. This is a replacement that somebody made somewhere in the past. So hang on, I'll need to get a pair of pliers probably in order to get this dismounted. Nope, it's turning, so we're good to go. Finger pressure is adequate. So pull the top stock screw, then we'll start removing the stock bolt. And in this particular case, it came out of something, somewhere. I don't know. I'm sure that the threads on the back side of the oh, and look at that. What a nice little self-attached gripping washer. That's intriguing. Oh, come on now. There we go. Then pull the stock assembly out. Now, here's something that I've had a lot of questions about. This is a trigger return spring. This actually mates up with the trigger. Let me grab another trigger over here to show you how that works on a metal trigger, like so. And that's what gives the trigger the pressure to kick back out, so that when you pull the trigger you have spring tension. These things are problematic. They're just a light spring, but they often get dislocated, get lost. And if this is not in your gun, it's not going to work right. So we've got the stock removed. Our next step is to remove the trigger itself from this gun, which I predict will resemble this trigger quite a bit. And that's the old Daisy metal trigger, the trigger that lasts forever. Not to be confused with the current production trigger, which is made of plastic and has a limited lifespan. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of those laying around over here. Here's the new trigger. As you can see, it's a much different unit. Whereas this is just a simple metal stamping with one bearing point and a spring pushing in from the base of the stock to provide trigger pressure. This is the trigger that was designed after the lawsuits in the late 70s to incorporate a safety. And this one just doesn't want to function right. That's why it's not in the gun right now. But instead of a simple sear, it's got a whole series of interior springs and small bits of pieces of metal. You know, this engages the sear, and this is releasing the sear. But the housing assembly is made of plastic, and it has its own issues from a durability point of view. That's the early trigger, and this is the latest version of the same trigger with the bear trap device built into it. And this is designed to keep the lever from slamming back on a young user's hands if he's got his hands wrapped around the wrist of the stock while he's trying to cock the gun. Same basic safety on-off, but this device here keeps it's called an anti-bear trap. And it, because it's more mechanical induction, or more mechanical aspects, it has the ability to jam the gun in its own right, all by its lonesome. But those are issues for other times because I don't mess with plastic triggers. All right, now we've got the trigger out, and as I said, pretty much an exact clone of the other trigger. Last step is we're going to pull the lever, get it out of our hair, and then we're going to remove the plunger assembly. Now, every time I've done this, I've gotten questions from people because people just having a rough time visualizing how these spring stop, the spring block, and the plunger work. So this little metal piece here is a little metal tab, and it goes all the way through the receiver to this pin and locks around it. The mainspring exerts force on that. So in order to get the plunger assembly out, you have to remove the spring stop. And we're going to show you how to do that. So, okay, now we've moved to the vise, and we've got the receiver clamped into the vise pretty stoutly, pretty stiffly, because we're going to be pushing on it. Once again, that's the spring block. This is the piece we're going to get out of the gun to get the plunger out. And we're going to use our tool, the main spring compressor, to get that done with. Normally I do this upside down because gravity is gravity. And once the spring block is free, it may fall out of the gun, or it may decide it wants to hang out in the gun. But our first step is to get contact with the mainspring. And we're lifting it, but we're not catching. There we go. Up. Up. All right, so now I've got the mainspring compressed. The spring block comes out. Bam. So that's done. So we're going to invert the gun now in order to pull the plunger out. And hopefully that will free up the bottle cap. So take the plunger out of the back of the gun. Oh, this one's looking kind of winky. Boop. Well, it's the new style. It's got an old felt washer. That's nice. The spring legs look a little compressed. But that's an odd looking spring. Oh man, that spring ain't got no pump at all. I don't think that's a factory Daisy spring. I think somebody's been in this gun and replaced it one time before. But now that we've got the plunger assembly and the air tube out, and the air tube's not excessively peened, let's see if our bottle cap will now cooperate with us. No, it won't. It is being recalcitrant. So we're going to go to step 2. We're going to clamp the bottle cap, and we're going to twist the receiver. And we're going to see if we can get this rascal to break free, because it just doesn't want to go. And we're probably twisting that shot tube all to pieces. No, it is frozen in there solid. Now what I'm going to do is take a peek down the inside. Can't really see anything. Well, there's no BB in there. There's no clog. So let's go back to the vise and see if we can persuade this to release its grip. I expect something to go snap here in just a minute. Ah, there we go. Well, that means the abutment has broken loose. Well, now we have a real problem. The abutment washer is now spinning freely, and that's not good. So whatever actually has gone on down at the abutment washer with this bottle cap is now in a free spinning environment, which is going to require additional steps to get that bottle cap extracted. And that's nothing we're going to cover in this particular video, kids. So we've faced a problem, we've confronted the problem, we've taken action, and we haven't solved the problem. You don't win every time. Well, that's all we got for you today, kids. Shane Bruce, Rest on My Daisy, signing off.